Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening. One of the reasons why I don't watch women's sport is because they've now weaponized it to such a degree that look at the Women's World Cup. They are going to use this to force the US Soccer Association or whatever federation to force them to give them more money. They bitch and bitch and bitch. Yet all the sports that women get into that men have invented, started up, they expect everything to be set out for them. Give an example. Manchester United here in the UK set up a female team in, ooh, I think it's 2006. No, sorry, they stopped. They had a female team and they stopped it in 2006. Since then, there was a campaign of consistent bitching for Manchester United to set it up again. I think Chelsea and a few other teams had a female football team, but Manchester United didn't want to waste their money. Now, I don't know why they decided. I think it was 2017, whether they were forced by the FA to set this up, or they did it off their own back. I don't know. I can't remember. But while these women were bitching, not one of them said, let's set up the team ourselves. We don't need Manchester United directly. We can set up our own women's team. We can find sponsors, find female directors or people like that who will sponsor them, find a ground. No. They expected from that day, 2016, until they didn't do anything. They waited for Manchester United to capitulate and set up the team, put the money from the men's side and set up a women's team. That's all women do. They'll bitch and moan. They want equal pay. You look at tennis. They get equal pay in tennis. Yet, the viewerships at times, I think this year, this year, Wimbledon, the men's final, I think it was said that I think the women's got 4.5 million. Sorry, the men's got 4.5, the final million, and the women's got 4.6. So for the first time in 13 years, they actually got more viewers. And that was only because of the fact that the men's World Cup, I think France against Croatia, was on the same day, literally clashed. So it's not surprising that most people went to watch the World Cup final, the men's game. But this it's extraordinary where these women are bitching and complaining. They're saying they've been badly treated by they've been discriminated against. There's a cricketer, great cricketer. Well, he's retired now, obviously, and his name is Geoffrey Boycott. I think it was in the early '80s or middle '80s. He took a picture of his supposed hotel room that he was staying in. I think he was playing in India at the time. And you just saw him sitting on his bed in this literally a grotty room, grotty. The light switch was hanging off the wall. The light itself was just on a bit of wire. The bed looked a complete mess. It was a grotty room. And he's sitting there staring at the camera. You know, it was obviously on a self-timer. And I think that picture alone embarrassed the cricket association, whereas CCC, to now do something about putting their players into better accommodation. Because it was, I mean, I was horrified when I saw it. I thought, what? Are you serious? This is where they're putting Britain's best cricketers, shoddy, nasty, dirty hotel. So you see, sportsmen have had to go through adversity over the time. Soccer, or well, we call it football here in the UK, in the late 50s, coming into the 60s, they had the same problem with pay. Many of the men played football literally on peanuts. They played the game because they loved the game, but they weren't getting the money themselves because that money was all going to the FA. And they went on strike to demand more money. But they were really deserving. There were no sponsorships back in those days for football. Okay. Whereas today, I mean, these women are making, without the money that they're getting from the FA, millions of pounds in sponsorship. This is the American female team, though. And have you noticed it's who are the bastards, the nasty twats that are making the biggest noise? The American team. I think the British England female team have made some bitching about pay as well. They're not interested in the realities of the fact that what their game is, it's improving. They're getting more viewership, but they're not satisfied. They're not satisfied. The men's game is about 6.5 billion. They've made 100 billion. What is the viewership of the world viewership for the women's game? I don't know. I need to check. Listen, if the women's viewership is getting anywhere near to the men's, they definitely need to be paid exactly the same. No problem at all. And that's what it should be based on, purely on the viewership and what they pull in. I mean, to be honest with you, they are looking to take the USA Football Association, USA Soccer, to court to force them to pay them more money. What happens if it bankrupts them and ruins them? They don't give a shit. But not only are they going to take them to court, they're going to expect the association to pay past players as well. So those who retired probably quite a few years ago, they want them to be paid as well. I mean, extraordinary. There was a time when, before 1995, 96, rugby players used to be amateurs. And all they got basically was sort of reasonable expenses, like, obviously the care, travel expenses, hotel, etc., etc. and they were expected to train. But remember, these guys worked as well. And it took one man to embarrass the rugby union to do something about it and to take the game into professionalism. Will Carlin. To look at the fact that, look, it was making a lot of money, but England would never ever be able to beat the likes of Australia, New Zealand, South Africa if they didn't become a professional outfit. And that's the reason why they were able to win in 2003, because they became professional. But it's really annoying that these weaponized lesbians should feel that they should get the same pay. The easiest look, there are several solutions to the problem. I think that they should have a regular game between the American men's first team and the American women's first team. And it should be once a month for a year, or best out of 5, to see which one is definitely superior. And whichever wins, for instance, if the women beat the guys, what beat the guys, they should get or a proportion of the men's money when they go to, when the men have their worlds, the World Cup, the men's World Cup. And if the men win, they should be able to tell the bitches to shut their fucking mouth and keep into their lane. It's getting tiring, honest to God. Or the other solution is, if the Women's World Cup has reached a literal turning point, why don't they split completely from the FA and manage themselves completely? So any profits they make, nothing to do with the FA, and they can build their sport up consistently over time. They don't need the FA, because this is not, for men, I'm sure they're getting tired of all this shit. They really are getting tired of women's sport, because all they consistently do is moan about, the sexism in the sport. They moan about they're not getting enough money. They moan about they're not getting treated well. Split, for instance, women's tennis from the men completely. Have a tournament, 2-week or 1-week tournament before the men or after the men, whichever is, would be advantageous for the women, and then the men can have their own separate. Okay. That way you would get, they could run their association how they want, pay the female staff how they want, get their sponsors how they want. The only thing they would have access to, obviously, is to the, to the grounds. Okay. But apart from that, they will be two separate organizations, not connected together. Because I think the women's and the men's, they come under the same umbrella. No, completely separate them. Don't play mixed, Wimbledon with the men's and the women's, just separate them. Because I'm sick of the whining and the bitching that these women do. Nobody hardly watches netball. Okay. Nobody hardly watches women's hockey. But, it's getting a sort of a cultish following. The reason why women's football is successful, certainly in America, is because most of the women that play are fucking butch lesbians. But the other reason is that they have access to the best equipment, the best resources. This is the women's team than any of the other teams in women's football. That's why there's that massive chasm. Any resource they need, they'll get it. Okay. So it's going to be very hard for these other female teams to catch up with them in the future. And I don't see any because they will still have the best result. Maybe China um, has that possibility if they plough the money, and I'm sure they will do in the future. Put more money in the women's team, especially in China and Russia. So the countries that have got access to nutrition, equipment, they will put that into the women's game as it gets more popular. It, Everybody wants things to be fair. That's what it is. Today, it's not about fairness. It's about giving women an unfair advantage. They already have affirmative action in America. It's embedded in their society. Women have had a leg up in employment for since the early 60s, especially white women. The feminist movement is a white female construct, okay? And it's benefited black women to a degree, but only because the white females saw it as benefit to them to advance their strive for dominance in society. That's why you see a lot of things going to shit in this society. The standards that we used to have before just been lowered so much. The NHS is in shit because 90% of NHS staff are women. And administrators are women. They're the ones that are fucking up the NHS because it's poorly run. So these bitches are going to take the US Soccer Federation to court. So let's look at some of this here. So there were arseholes in the crowd who were shouting, equal pay, equal pay. I mean, what is it when they talk about equal pay? How can they think that they should be allowed the audacity for them to think that they can go and get the money that the men have earned and they should have access to that cash? Wimbledon was giving women equal pay before they were forced and consistently shamed, especially by that big old fat buffalo, Serena Williams. When they were paying women in proportion to the amount of sets they were paying, many women kept quiet. It was only Serena Williams I could remember who was bitching and bitching and moaning and bitching. Because many of the women in the circuit don't like Serena Williams. But they said nothing. They didn't really want to, there was quite a few women who didn't want to get involved. There is no honesty. Today is just depravity. To lie is the new truth. You must lie. Because that's been, people are seen as telling the truth when they lie. It's a big shame. So So this silly bitch, so-called winger, uh, it was fantastic to be able to hear the support of the fans in the stadium for something we've been fighting for so hard, especially on a global stage. I think it's just the start of something massive and culture changing. Whatever it's going to be, I don't give a shit. I make the statement I do not watch any female sports other than maybe the Olympics. But again, it's only a few minutes here and there. Female sports. Most of my time, I'm watching the men's, seeing what they're doing. That's where my interest lies. If women want us to respect them, they have to be honest. What these bitches are doing is not honest. It's not right. They think it's right because they see a push to get more money for doing very little. Okay, look, maybe that's wrong. I think it states here somewhere that the women actually play more soccer than their male counterparts. That might be the case, and I'm sure if they do have a tournament once a month, or best of five, they'll probably do. Sounds like they'll do pretty well against the men. Let's see that. Then we can put it to bed once and for all. Um, while equal pay has many facets, including the massive disparity in prize money that FIFA offers the winners of its men's and women's World Cups, there is no more pressing concern than the lawsuit the players filed against their boss, the US Soccer Federation. The players allege the federation has practiced institutionalized gender discrimination. What a fucking load of shite. What kind of nonsense is this? Clown world is what we're living in today. And it's not just down to pay. The players have often found themselves in inferior accommodation to the men. And unlike other counterparts, the women team have had to compete on artificial turf, which leaves um, footballers more prone to injury. Oh, really? I don't really know what to say because, I mean, from the point of view of accommodation, um, we all people go through issues and problems you know, in their life. But this is not, um, what's the word, specific to women. Men have gone through this consistently. You only have to look at the history of football itself. The same thing they were chasing about pay. Okay, but they had a legitimate reason for that. They were getting paid peanuts in comparison to what these women are getting paid. Some of these female footballers are now getting millions of pounds from sponsors. Okay, and things like that. So they can't compare to what some of the guys, male footballers that were playing back in the 40s, 50s, and 60s. They can't compare. Coming into the tournament, the players insisted the lawsuit sat on the back burner, and that trying to win the World Cup was a separate goal. But they know lifting the trophy has helped their cause and put pressure on their employees. So, asked how the World Cup win changes the lawsuit, um, the silly bitch said, "Well, it's not good for them, is it? I hope, but they don't win. Just to just to get piss them off. I really do hope they don't win. I'm seriously praying they don't win. But you know what? I get a feeling, and I hope I'm wrong, that they will win unfairly, not justly, unfairly. Winning the World Cup is huge. We've been shy to say that and put so much pressure on ourselves because we think we have no case. We think we have a case no matter what. But this just blows it out of the water. It is even about that. Is it even about that anymore? Or is it just about doing the right thing? The Federation is in a unique position to ride this good wave of fortune. What the fuck are you talking about? Doesn't need your nonsense. Doesn't need your shit. I think America is in the last throes of the similar to the Roman Empire. I don't think America certainly is going to be much of a leader in the next 20 or 30 years. It, I mean, that's quite a long time, but I think China will push through. India and one or two of the other bigger players will push through, and America will become a bit player like Britain has become after relinquishing the British Empire. At the core of the players' argument is that they have had to win to get paid, while the men have been compensated more generously without getting close to a World Cup title. The rallying cry has been equal pay for equal work. Well, then that should be the same for tennis. You know, I mean, women's tennis are not. It's not equal pay for equal work. They're playing less. They're playing 3 sets to the men's set, 5 sets. Yet they're actually getting more pay for doing less work. That's how evil and twisted. The devil is in everything on this planet. The devil has successfully, made its way where it didn't fail with Adam and Eve. It succeeded in getting us thrown out of the Garden of Eden because of that silly bitch, Eve. Okay, she was the cause of the problem, and she had to pay for it, and quite rightly so. So, but in fact, the women have done more work. In a typical calendar year, they play more often than the men, to the point where the women bring in more money from games. The biggest single source of revenue for each team. That shoots a harpoon into the heart of the argument that the men should be paid more because they generate more. The lawsuit doesn't hinge on USA winning the World Cup, but everything else will. The public support for the team, who are as popular now as they've ever been, will continue to surge. US soccer is now in a fight with its most successful and beloved team and will probably want to resolve this without going to trial. God, I wish I was in. I would say, well, if you want to, fuck you bitches. Go on, piss off then. You sort yourselves out. We're done with you. We don't need your nonsense. We'll just manage the men's team. They should just drop the bitches. But it's not going to happen, unfortunately. I wish it could, but it ain't. This is the reality that we are in. It's always a good thing to have the World Cup victory in the back pocket. But we never wanted to base our case off the success of the women's team. We wanted it to be based on the merit of the work we've been putting in for the team. But yeah, it's also helpful to have the public on your side. Both sides in the lawsuit have tentatively agreed to mediation, and winning the World Cup adds pressure on US soccer to meet the bastards' demands, which sources say include a payout. Just listen to this, people. Listen. Which sources say includes a payout for the current and former players in the tens of millions of dollars. That sum should not be beyond the means of US soccer, which is reportedly sitting on a surplus of 150 million. Why is it sitting on us? Let's have a look at that. Okay. So let's see the reason why it's supposedly sitting. This was October the 18th. That was last year. So Dan Flynn stepping down off soccer next year. It's because he's 63. We all get old, I suppose. Was named. Oh, but wow, he's been there since 2016. A time when USSF was in extreme financial difficulty. So this guy was named Secretary General in 2000, and he's been able to. It was in extreme financial difficulty, and oversaw a period of rapid growth and increased stability, with the Federation now sitting on a surplus $150 million. Flynn's tenure largely coincided with the former USSF president, whatever his name is, who opted not to run for re-election last February after 12 years at the helm. So this guy was succeeded by Carlos. Flynn is expected to assist with its transition. Blah blah blah. Okay, the lifetime soccer executive underwent a heart transplant. Wow, back in 2016. But one source stressed that Flynn is in good physical condition and that his health wasn't a factor in his decision to stand aside. Blah blah. So let's have a look and see. He's later enjoyed a successful business career with blah blah blah. He was blah blah blah. 1994, a position that he later parlayed into positions with the blah blah blah. But there's nothing here. I'm just trying to see what. Yeah, it's a bit strange. So, sorry, getting back to that. Yeah, so we don't know why they're sitting on that. Is that come from just the women's game? I mean, they've got a surplus 150,000. The men must be doing something as well to get to that. Right. So right now, a settlement seems like the most likely outcome, since truly equal pay may not be possible. The US national teams negotiate separate collective bargaining agreements with different pay structures, and the women are not asking for the same compensation as the men. Really, after all, the women get salaries combined with bonuses, while the men get bonuses. But the women argue that in addition to substandard treatment in other ways, the US soccer offers the women less compensation overall, regardless of how it's doled out. However, the women are now world champions, and those upcoming mediation sessions should be a different tone than if the team had crashed out before the final. This is what I'm saying to you. Is it worth the headache of managing women's sport? Because there is just constant bitchiness in the sport itself. If there's not one thing, there's another. If there's not another, it just gets tiring. It really does. So, I mean, for me, I would say, you know, I don't support women's sport. I'm not interested in it. Um, Now, look at F1, where F1 are now going to use the money that the guys have worked their butt off to, raise the sport, to set up a women's F1, I think with 20 female drivers. And it's, for women. But why didn't women do this? If women were really wanting to be drivers, where are all these women, female directors? All these, women who are making money now, you know, who could have clamped together and, um, set up a female Formula One team, you know, and case, then bring those, the FA would have been interested and said, right, how about, bringing some women into this and mixing it up with the guys, you know. But no, they always sit back and wait for men to be the ones to set it up for them, men to do the donkey work. No, for me, America is the land that is going down the toilet every single year. At the moment, it's being held up by Trump. Okay, but when he leaves office, if the Democrats get it back in, it will go down the toilet. Plain and simple, it will just go down the toilet. Anyway, I've said my piece. Just a bit tired of all this nonsense. Why do I care? Because I believe in fairness. I think things need to be done fairly. And I don't like seeing the men's sport having to finance the women's. They've got, you've got the men and the women's. The women should be supporting their own sport. And then I would have respect for the women's sport. Anyway, enough said. Thanks for listening. Good day.